Side doors at dusk, testimonies at noon. My name is Nico, and the first unkind thing I'll tell you about myself is that I believe in doors more than I believe in people. Doors are honest. They ask a question, and they answer it as many times as you want. I'm head of security at the Meridian Hotel, the one that has the glass staircases influencers fall in love with and the Bourbon Bar executives mistake for confidentiality. On paper, I manage key control, staffing, incident reports. In practice, I curate access. I decide which stories get privacy and which get witnesses. It's a power you have to hold like a glass you don't own. I live with Louis. He runs a catering company that feeds a city trying to impress itself. He salts without guilt and forgives slower. We've been together 3 years, long enough to have recurring fights with good choreography. On our fridge, we taped an index card with a dumb rule that kept us from breaking in half last spring: speak by noon. We don't always make the deadline. We try. The Tuesday the badge readers cooperated and I didn't. The Meridian was an engine purring to itself. The night auditor handed me a report that smelled like toner and pessimism. Housekeeping staged a small revolt over towels, and a sports team checked out without taking a single robe, which felt like a lie. At 11:51, the joint email Louis and I use for deliveries and regrets buzzed my phone. Thank you for your stay, the Meridian Hotel. Time: 12:073:03. Points 200 added. My desk chair became a witness. I didn't call. Our second rule is for everything not yet a disaster, 2 loops around the block before nomming it. My block is the service corridor behind the ballrooms, a polished ribbon where carts confess tiredly and banquet captains invent excuses. I walked it twice. The ice machine coughed the sentence all machines know: you already know. At 12:30, a man I'd never escorted before asked me for a key I shouldn't have given him. He had eyes like the part of the river that thinks it's the ocean and a suit that made the lobby stop rehearsing itself. "Mr. Avery," he said, and the name fell like a folded piece of paper in a coat pocket. "I need to check something in my companion's room. He's expecting me." He had the calm of a man who always expects compliance. "Companion's name?" I asked. "Adrian Vale," he said, and the elevator dinged its opinion. He passed me an ID that read perfectly real and a smile that read perfectly contempt. I checked the system, read the note that said Vale was in 2106, glanced at the camera and saw 2106 opened 12 minutes earlier with a housekeeping master, and gave Mr. Avery the key because I liked the feeling of saying yes to a man whose day was about to remember him. "Thank you," he said. "Do you enjoy your work?" "I enjoy the correctness of doors," I said. "They make fewer promises than people." He nodded as if that had been an answer worth filing. He walked to the elevator with a posture that had already made room for a decision. I watched him because it's my job and because I wanted to. Louis texted at 1, tastings till 5, send proof of life at 3 or I'll call the lobby and embarrass you. And I sent back a photo of the stairwell because it always looks like a sentence I haven't said yet. He replied with a heart and the word behave. It's a useful imperative that mostly works when you mean it. At 4, a guest services agent paged me to the 6th floor because a woman in a room that wasn't hers wanted to know what day it was. The day told me to ask fewer questions. At 5:30, a bridal party decided the fire alarm was an instrument. At 7, the Bourbon Bar produced a man who believed volume was a form of innocence. We escorted him to his disappointment, and I wrote a report with my polite handwriting. At 10, I checked 2106 on my nightly walk because following a story to the end is a muscle that doesn't atrophy. The door was ajar. I knocked like a person who expects to be obeyed and entered like a person who doesn't mind being hated. Adrian was sitting on the edge of the bed, with a face that hadn't learned how to lie gracefully. And Mr. Avery, no, we can use his name, Miles, stood by the window with the calm of a man who shouldn't have believed a door would finish the conversation for him. Adrian looked at me like a stage manager waves at a light cue and said, "We're fine." I said because the script likes me better when I say it, "We received a noise complaint. It's rarely true and always useful." Miles said, very gently, "We'll keep it down." He was polite to the point of violence, the way men get when they are tired of having a body that keeps telling on them. I went back into the hallway and stood in front of the mirror that has seen more marriages than vows. My tie was crooked in a way only I would notice. The mirror offered the sentence you learn to respect when you work for a building. You will keep doing this until you stop. I'd met Adrian before. He consigned paintings to hunger and made speeches that sounded like sincerity warmed up. He knew Lewis, who catered his events and hated him in the professional way that keeps people employed. He had once put his hand on my forearm at a fundraiser while asking for more ice and said, "You look like the kind of man who knows how to keep a room honest." I had smiled the smile that means I expect you to leave an hour from now, and he had. Miles I had not met, but I had seen men stand like him, shoulders apologizing to themselves, chin set to the angle that says, "I know I chose this, and I'm not asking for a parade." He made me want to check the bolts on the staircase. Lewis came by the desk at midnight on his way home from the warehouse, smelling like time and sweat and ambition. He kissed my temple. "You look like a man who forgot noon," he said. "I'll remember it tomorrow," I said, and hated that my mouth tries out sentences before my heart can veto them. "Tomorrow's a popular date," he said lightly, and left me a box of leftover tartlets that forgiveness would be foolish not to eat. After he left, I did something I am not proud of. I watched the feed from the hallway outside 2106 for longer than I like admitting. I watched Miles leave and then come back and then leave for a longer time and then come back in a way that looked like confession. I watched Adrian call room service for coffee nobody drank. I watched a housekeeper walk by and adjust her ponytail with the hand that holds the fates of men more carefully than they deserve. At 2, the elevator doors opened on a face I recognized from a newspaper story about a tech founder who liked to litigate reality. He had a ring on his finger that would pay a sous chef's rent for a quarter of a year, and the affect of a man who had stopped believing in nouns. He walked to 2106 with an expression that made the carpet remember every stain it had forgiven. The camera saw the exchange, the hallway heard it, the door recorded it. 2 voices, one saying, "I can explain," one saying, "You can start." I logged it because security work is mostly polite memory. Around 3, Lewis texted me a photo of our bed and the words, "You promised," and I wrote back, "half an hour." And the elevator broke deliberately because elevators believe in drama. I took the stairs, started a maintenance ticket with language that wouldn't offend anybody with a clipboard, and clocked out at 3:30. I walked home in a city that was pretending it would give the night a chance. When I got there, Lewis was awake, sitting at the foot of the bed like he was saving a spot for his better judgment. "You missed the deadline," he said. "I know," I said. "Do you like this work more than you like me?" he said. "And there are questions you are not allowed to answer even when you could." He put his palm on my chest like a bouncer for my heart. "Say it by noon," he said, and then he lay down and turned his back because bodies want to keep bills closed when they can. At 9 the next morning, a woman with hair like a good decision and shoes like income asked me for a report of elevators that had failed while I was in them. And I printed one because we believe in paper at the Meridian when we don't believe in anything else. At 11:15, Adrian checked out with luggage that pretended not to be ashamed. He handed me his key like a ceremony. "We love what you do here," he said, and for once I let my face be honest. At 11:50, a man with a face I recognized from the hallway at 2 leaned against my desk and asked for discretion like a product. "My husband is," he started, and I let him finish because some sentences have earned it. "He was with someone. I need to know who he thinks he is." I told him I was sorry like you tell a person you understand doors won't help this one. He pressed his mouth into a straight line and said, "You look like someone who has decided to be good. It must be exhausting." At noon I went home and kept the rule. I told Lewis what the email was, and what the corridor said, and what the elevator didn't do, and what my hallway mirror is tired of watching me learn. I didn't tell him about my fascination with the quiet at the edges of Miles's mouth. I didn't tell him about Adrian's ring light of charm. I told him what he needed to not hate me, and what I needed to stay in the apartment we pay for. He listened like a man who knows depositions. "You want to keep me," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said, "and I want to keep my job, and I want to keep from pretending I can make both of those sentences true without paying attention." He nodded. "Then we make a second rule," he said. "No rooms you wouldn't say out loud in the lobby." He meant metaphors, and he meant hotel rooms, and he meant my mouth. Security work is a syllabus on the erotics of withholding. Still, that night we took it to bed and decided desire isn't a force you control by ignoring. He pressed me back against the headboard and kissed me the way a chef edits a plate, decisive and kind. I took his shirt off in a way that has taken me years to learn and seconds to remember. He asked me to say his name like an answer. I did, and meant it. We were careful where we always are, rough where we always need to be, deliberate where we're out of practice. After, he put his hand on my throat gently and asked, "Here?" And I nodded because some questions are the answer. We left the lamp on because we had earned daylight. 2 days later, a tip came through the quiet channels the Meridian cultivates like heirloom herbs. A staffer on the mezzanine had been accepting cash to look the other way when certain rooms got a little too friendly with housekeeping masters. I interviewed, I checked logs, I watched hallway feeds. I made it boring on purpose so nobody would feel important while we decided whether to be fair. In the end, we fired a man with great hair and bad judgment. He hugged me on the way out and said, "I thought I was giving people what they wanted." And I told him, "So did I once," and he laughed without humor and called me a priest. Adrian started staying at another hotel that prefers a lobby with less honesty. I watched his name drop off our occupancy and felt the building shift its weight like a figure in a painting when the light changes. Miles started sending packages to the desk addressed to himself care of the other hotel, a courtesy that felt like a performance. I hoped the man with the ring would decide to be as careful with himself as he is with his car. I checked feeds less and slept more. The revenue reports kept pretending they were news. On a Thursday, a couple came to the desk and asked me to recommend a room that was forgiving. I almost handed them a key to the broom closet and a pair of candlesticks. Instead, I gave them a corner with a river view and asked if they wanted extra towels without shame. The woman smiled in a way that felt like a correct use of privacy. The man looked around at the lobby like it had exonerated him. He returned the key the next morning with gratitude and poorly disguised relief. I logged the stay under habit and didn't put a price on it. If you need the intrigue diagrammed, a hotel room, a door that answers questions, a man who believed keys were arguments, a couple who made a story out of each other and then decided to put it in the lobby where it belonged. If you need the erotics to earn their mention, they did what they always do. They brought a body back into a room it pays for. If you need the ending to justify the trouble, there isn't one that stays. The Meridian opens, closes, opens. Lewis salts, forgives, salts. I walk the corridor and practice being tired of myself, and sometimes I am good at it. Noon is a season you have to live in or it refuses to be a rule. Today I said the thing before the thing said me. Lewis kissed me on his way to a tasting and said, "You are allowed to keep holding doors open, but you are not allowed to walk through all of them." I said, "One is enough," and it was both a lie and an aspiration. Outside, the river did its minor miracle and kept going in one direction with style. The city lined its switches without complaint. For a few hours at a time, I get to decide which stories get privacy and which get witnesses. I'm trying to be the kind of man who chooses correctly even when the lobby is full.